there is a silence before every act of violence, a silence so heavy it hums. Imagine a dimly lit room. A man sits alone at the edge of his bed. His hands are still, but the air around him trembles. In that silence, there is no hatred, no rage, only a strange, hollow calm, the kind that comes after years of noise within. He breathes slowly. He has not yet done anything, but something inside him already has. Because long before a killer takes a life, he has already killed something within himself. This is where our story begins, not with the weapon, but with the wound. Every killer was once a child who watched love turn into something unrecognizable, a child who learned that tenderness could vanish overnight, a child who saw that to be powerless was to be destroyed. And so, somewhere deep inside, he made a vow: I will never be powerless again. That vow becomes the seed, and over time, it grows roots of steel. In the soil of neglect, humiliation, and fear, it hardens into something that no longer bends. When love first betrays you, your heart doesn't just close, it calcifies. The warmth that once flowed outward begins to fold inward, and emotion becomes logic. Pain becomes precision. The child learns to observe instead of feel, to predict instead of connect. He studies people the way one studies predators, by learning what makes them dangerous. And one day, he realizes he can become the danger himself. To understand the psychology of the killer, we must understand the illusion of control. Violence is not born from power. It's born from helplessness that has forgotten its name. When someone feels unseen, unheard, and unprotected for too long, they begin to crave the one thing they never had: agency. For some, that becomes art. For others, success. For a few, it becomes control over life and death. Killing, for them, is not always about destruction. It is about rewriting the story of being small. It is the fantasy of finally being the one who decides what happens. But beneath that illusion, there is a trembling core, a terrified child still hiding under the bed, believing that safety can be earned by becoming the thing he once feared. That is the paradox of the killer. He does not kill because he hates life. He kills because he cannot bear to feel it. Society imagines killers as monsters, inhuman, detached, alien. But most of them wear masks so ordinary you would not notice them in a crowd. They smile, they laugh, they remember birthdays. They can seem calm, even charming, because the mask is not deception, it's armor. It protects what little humanity remains inside. It allows them to mimic warmth without melting, because if they ever truly let themselves feel, the buried pain would annihilate them. Behind the calm exterior is not pure evil. It is dissociation. It is the nervous system locked in perpetual freeze, a survival mechanism that never learned how to thaw. Some killers talk about feeling nothing, but nothing is not the absence of feeling. It is the wall built to survive the flood. Maybe you see yourself here, not in the act, but in the feeling. The part of you that clenches your fists when you feel small. The part that fantasizes, even for a second, about control, revenge, or making them finally see what they did to you. We all have that shadow, the one Jung called the part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The killer's tragedy is not that he has a shadow, it's that he became swallowed by it. Most of us repress our darkness. He embraced his completely, and in doing so, he lost the bridge back to light. But the shadow itself is not evil. It is wounded potential, the raw energy of life turned inward. If understood, it can fuel creation. If denied, it festers into destruction. So the difference between an artist and a killer is not the depth of their pain, but what they do with it. At some point, the killer stops feeling human. But that's not arrogance, it's anesthesia. When you've spent your life watching emotion turn into punishment, you stop trusting your own heart. He learns to numb, to cut off from empathy, not because he despises it, but because it became too dangerous to feel. There's a haunting phrase often used in criminal psychology: he killed without remorse. But what is remorse to someone who has never been allowed to have emotions safely? He doesn't lack conscience, he lacks connection. His moral compass was shattered long before he took a life. To him, people are objects in motion, pieces on a board, reflections of threat or control. And when he acts, it is less an act of passion than of inevitability, a script written long ago, playing itself out to its final line. Right before the act, there is often hesitation. A heartbeat of humanity flickers, a voice that whispers, "Don't." And for a moment, time stretches. That's the ghost of the person he might have been. A final flare of light before the eclipse, but the pain is too loud. The silence too unbearable, and so the cycle completes. When he finally does it, it's not triumph, it's relief. Because the tension, the noise, the storm inside finally finds an outlet. But the relief never lasts. It's always followed by the echo, a haunting quiet that sounds like the absence of God. Even killers cannot escape the body's truth. The nervous system keeps score. Many confess not out of guilt, but exhaustion. Their act was meant to silence the chaos within, but instead it amplified it. The nightmares return, not of the victim, but of the self. Because deep down, something in them knows they were both the murderer and the murdered. In destroying another, they were trying to destroy the powerless child that still lived inside them. But the child does not die. He only cries louder in the dark. And so the cycle repeats until someone finally sees that child. There is a myth that evil is rare, but in truth, what we call evil is simply pain multiplied through generations. A father's violence becomes a son's silence. A mother's neglect becomes a daughter's numbness. And somewhere down the line, someone decides to end the pain, not by healing it, but by externalizing it. The killer is the final expression of that chain. He is not separate from us. He is what happens when suffering goes unspoken too long. Every act of cruelty in this world is an echo of an older wound. And if we listen closely, we can hear the cry beneath the violence. See me, hear me, don't let me vanish. So what does healing look like for a mind that has crossed that threshold? Perhaps not redemption, but recognition. To look honestly at the shadow and whisper, "I see you." To remember that even the darkest psyche was once built to survive. Healing begins not with punishment, but with truth. The truth that no one is born cruel. Cruelty is learned when love becomes conditional. Imagine a world where every child who trembled in fear was held instead of humiliated. Where anger was met with curiosity, not contempt. How many monsters would have never been born? To heal the psychology of the killer, we must first heal the culture that creates him. The culture that rewards dominance, that mistakes sensitivity for weakness, that teaches men to fear their own softness. Violence begins where vulnerability is forbidden. So the cure is not control, it is connection. Maybe you've never hurt anyone like that. Maybe you think you never could. But consider this. Every time you silence your anger instead of understanding it, every time you detach when someone gets too close, every time you choose control over vulnerability, you are walking the same narrow bridge, one step away from forgetting your own humanity. We are all capable of darkness. The difference is whether we are willing to look at it before it looks through us. If you have ever wanted to destroy what you could not understand, if you have ever fantasized about erasing the parts of yourself that feel too much, know this: that urge is not evil. It is pain asking to be witnessed. True strength is not the absence of violence, but the mastery of it. When we integrate the shadow, we no longer need to project it. We no longer seek control through harm, because we have learned to hold our own chaos. The killer inside us becomes the guardian, the part that once destroyed now protects. And in that transformation, something miraculous happens. The energy of destruction becomes the energy of creation. That is the alchemy of the human soul. The same fire that can burn a village can also forge gold. In the end, every killer is searching for the same thing as every saint: a way to stop the pain. One destroys to silence it. The other surrenders to understand it. And maybe that's the ultimate truth, that the line between darkness and light is not drawn between people, but within each of us. The question is not whether the killer lives among us, but whether we have the courage to face the one within. Evil is not born. It is inherited silence, waiting to be understood.